Hello, welcome to Killer Score, the podcast that covers cult classic movies with awesome soundtracks and scores and talks about the composers and everything that goes into those films. On this episode, we have a very special thing I would like to debut for the podcast, but right now, we'll do our usual intro. I am, of course, Daulton Morrison. You can find me on Twitter and YouTube at SickJacketMan. Just released a voice demo not too long ago. Projects coming up, and here's the rest of my hosts.
Hi, Erin Murray here, owner of witchandcraftsnj.com. I finally got it right that time.
Yay!
The business is called Witch and Crafts. The domain is witchandcraftsnj.com. That's a long story. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter under Nair Murray. Link in the description, I guess.
Yeah,
Always.
and we also have there's also a Witch and Crafts Instagram.
And TikTok.
Yeah, and you can message her on the Witch and Crafts Instagram if you wish to commission her for anything.
Yeah.
Hey there, Richard Eckert here with Richie's Rad Voices, doing all sorts of work for my posse over at Tantalus Productions, our neighbors over at Royal Flush, and all sorts of comic dubs and bigger products and productions that are possibly helmed by yours truly. You can find all that in the link to my YouTube channel in the description, etc., etc. I swear I'm not dead, I'm just busy.
All right, and this episode is going to be sort of a special episode. It's both a celebration and a mourning, as for those of you unaware, I'm a huge fan of the franchise Power Rangers, and this year marks the 30th anniversary of the entire franchise, and there will be a big 30th anniversary special later this year. You can watch essentially all of Power Rangers on Netflix, with a few exceptions, this being one of them. And we today specifically are covering the 1995 film debut of the Power Rangers, one of the only 3 released Power Rangers movies. The other being the Turbo movie, and the other being the somewhat decent Saban film that came out a few years ago. I have my gripes about that, but that's neither here nor there. Instead, we are going to be talking about the film adaptation of the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers cast, with the exception of, the new members that they brought in at the time. So, this film was sort of an interesting thing. Now, before I get too into it, I've seen this film. It's been years. Richie, you've seen the film as well, right?
Yes, I have. I may not be the biggest Power Rangers nerd ever, especially sitting next to this guy here, but I grew up with it. I would watch reruns of it on Fox Kids, and my little cousin and I were big fans of Dino Thunder back in the day, so
Solid series.
there's a reasonable amount of attachment there.
Yeah. And it's gone through a lot of changes and evolutions.
And I kind of like what we got going here, because there are varying levels of familiarity and attachment, of which Erin is a representative of not much at all.
I wouldn't say not much at all. I didn't watch Mighty Morphin Power Rangers that much when I was a kid. It was a little before my time.
Yeah.
I do remember seeing a few episodes of the later series, but my sister was the one who was more into Power Rangers than I was.
I'm guessing it was the Disney era where you kind of saw some of the stuff from.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have Disney Channel growing up, but my grandparents did.
Yeah.
So we would just watch. I don't even remember what channel it was on, if it was on Disney Channel, Fox Kids, or whatever.
Yeah, because Disney was the longest era of the show. People don't.
Could have been
realize.
Mystic Force or something.
Yeah,
Ninja Storm.
Ninja Storm, maybe.
It might have been Ninja Storm. My memories are very vague. My only knowledge of this movie is watching, YouTube clips of it here and there.
Yeah.
And, the Nostalgia Critic review, which tells you how long ago that was.
Yeah. So
Simpler times.
the other reason we're covering this film is, sadly, several months ago, one of the leads of this film and one of the most important people to Power Rangers as a franchise, Jason David Frank, who played the character Tommy Oliver, died. It was a very tragic event. brief content warning here for depression and suicide. You can skip ahead, but it was announced in November that Jason David Frank had been found after he killed himself. I don't want to get too into speculation. I don't like to do that for something like this. All we know is clearly he was struggling with something. He had gone through some events in his life recently that could have caused it, but I'm not going to get into those. And it's a tragic loss, especially on the front of, him being a part of so many series and anniversary specials. And I imagine if things had turned out differently, he probably would have been a part of the 30th, just like he was part of the 20th and the 25th. And so I wanted to make this to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the franchise, and also just talk about how kind of a weird thing this movie is. So for those that are unaware, I'm going to be honest with you. This is not a good place to start with Power Rangers.
At all.
At all.
At all.
Because for one, it's non-canon. It's just completely non-canon.
Huh.
Because, you see, when they put the movie out, the original owners of Power Rangers, Saban and Fox, they did not have the rights to this film. Because the film was not their creature. It was the other film studio who I'm blanking on, but it'll come up later. Basically, they couldn't use this. They couldn't use the characters from it, aside from, like, the Rangers. Like, they couldn't use the new original characters, like the principal villain of the movie, Ivan Ooze.
Shame, too, because he is a lot of fun.
Yeah, they couldn't use Ivan Ooze. They couldn't use Dulcinea. So because of that, they sort of had to essentially do, like, a television adaptation of this storyline explaining New Ranger powers. But they didn't use anything from that, aside from, like, the new animal forms that the Rangers had. Like I said, rights issues are weird. But this film is a landmark for many reasons. It was the film debut of a lot of the cast. It came in between the second and third season. Essentially, it was set before the latter half of the second season, where they adapt the events that lead to this. And they even had to film some of the second season in Australia because they went so over with shooting. Yeah, it was a mess of a production. For one, let me start by getting into it with the director. So nowadays we kind of take for granted in, like, Hollywood and such, how we get all these big franchise adaptations by people who are, like, hardcore fans of the source material.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you were lucky if you got that. And this is definitely one of those cases where you did not get that. So Brian Spicer was essentially brought on as a work-for-hire director because they asked a bunch of people, hey, do you want to direct this? And pretty much everyone was like, no.
This sounds eerily familiar to anyone who has seen or looked into the production of the 1990 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, and I am very tempted to cover that on the podcast eventually.
Yeah, so this is one of the only feature films that Brian Spicer has directed. I looked it up. He directed, like, one or two other feature films.
Huh.
Before this, Brian was, and still is to this day, mainly known for being a television director. Before this, he was most well known for directing some episodes of stuff like Magnum P.I. and Hawaii Five-0.
A lot of cop shows.
Yeah. And later, shows like Castle, 24, CSI, so.
And you did mention, speaking of cop shows, the connection with Law & Order SVU.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll get into that. The reason this was a nightmare is Spicer just took this job like, okay, cool, I get my film debut. But he also didn't take the job as seriously as he should have. And he outright admitted in later interviews to fast-forwarding through the show. And because of that, there was also issues with production because things got delayed because they would have to remind him of continuity or things that just straight up didn't make sense, which caused further delays. The most infamous being the production of the Ranger costumes for this movie, which he designed without visors or mouthpieces.
two of which are kind of signature moves when it comes to Ranger costume design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when everyone in the production saw the costumes, they said to Spicer, "What the hell?" And he was like, "Oh, well, I realized the big problem with this is you can't really show your emotions or emote when you have like these things covering your face," which should have been a red flag that he didn't actually watch the show, because if you watch the show, they emote like crazy wearing those suits.
Those not in the know would be well in their best interest to learn that Power Rangers actors are all about body language, wide motions, and nodding of the heads a la Red versus Blue in order to emote.
Just compare Austin St. John's non-transformed acting to the whatever he's doing when he's in the booth, because that man just goes all in. And because of that, there was all sorts of delays in shooting. It was filmed outside of California, like the principal series usually was filmed at the time. So because of that, they didn't have access to the usual stuff. And because of that, they also recasted basically all of the villains in this.
Oh yeah, all the people in the suits for Lord Zed and
Even the voice acting, too.
I'm pretty sure Barbara Goodson was still in this.
Yeah,
though,
I think
wasn't she?
Barbara Goodson and Robert Axelrod, I'm pretty sure, still performed, but they like recast a Goldar, Bazoo, and the other minions of Rita, whose names I'm not as familiar with.
Mort or something, whatever
Yeah.
that pig dude's name is.
They recasted them, which they were like, "Why did you you could have just got us to do voice work?" They were always kind of peeved about that, which understandable.
Well, yeah. It's like a David Hayter situation.
So, the other big production issue I want to talk about was the Australia thing, which wasn't that big of an issue for the most part. They actually filmed it because they were like, "Oh, Australia is really cheap to film in, and there's a lot of gorgeous location scenery." It does create a bit of a continuity kerfuffle, though, because when you look at it, they're still saying this is Angel Grove when it's clearly not Angel Grove at all.
Different architecture, different.
I believe it was specifically Queensborough, Australia, that they used for the scenes where they were like, "Oh yeah, it's still Angel Grove," when it looks nothing like California. I don't know why they didn't just write that the Rangers were on vacation somewhere. They could have just done that, which would have made sense.
Considering all the skydiving scenes
And the roller skating and all the stuff they do before the action actually starts.
The first fourth or fifth of the movie is essentially like extreme sports vacationer stuff.
It's the 90s.
Yeah. I mean, they literally had to tell the director that the reason the Rangers have mouthpieces and things is because they're not supposed to show fear and emotions, because they're supposed to be a fighting force. And they have secret identities.
Yeah. I think it was either David Yost or Johnny Young Bosch who said, secret identities.
Yeah. So another thing was when they hired Spicer, they didn't even have a script. So he had to get somebody to write a script, because it's believed by a lot of people, myself included, that this film was probably made out of obligation, because they promised to film to try to keep the old actors onto the show.
Yeah.
And they didn't stick around with it anyway, and they joined a union, so that was a whole thing. So they had to leave the show because Power Rangers wasn't a union show at the time.
The Power Rangers cast is kind of a Gordian knot of contractual kerfuffles. Just look at Austin St. John and Thuy Trang and Walter Emmanuel Jones's situation way back in the first part of the series.
Early on in stunt training, the stunt actor for Adam Park, the Black Ranger, broke his leg. So Johnny Young Bosch himself stepped in to do the stunts. So every stunt done by Johnny Young Bosch is done by Johnny Young Bosch.
Props to him, by the way, for stepping up to the plate.
Yeah, especially because the suits in this movie were a nightmare. They weighed 40 to 50 pounds each.
Oh my god.
What?
Yeah. So
You looked like you wanted to talk. I'm sorry, Erin.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna say, that's like Victorian underwear levels of weight.
it was a nightmare.
Oof.
Lots of scenes got cut and had to be reshot. For example, There was a scene where Ivan Ooze's powers create like these rat monsters. The rat monsters looked so bad that they didn't use the suits, and they went, this looks bad even for the TV show. So they took the suits, redressed them up, made them look better, and when they had to shoot those episodes on location in Australia, they used the suits they didn't use in the movie for monsters because of how bad this production was going.
I just want to say, too, if the effects for those were bad by this movie's standards, that's saying something, because, Erin, you've never seen this.
No.
So prepare yourself for some of the worst 90s CGI. Some of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the worst, but oh boy, like Atari Jaguar kind of beats out the quality of the CGI.
Yeah, the CG in this is some of the worst I've seen in a major studio film. I'm just going to be honest.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it doesn't even have the Spawn defense of good art direction to save it.
Yeah. Jason David Frank himself also did a lot of his own stunts for this. Not all of them, just because of the way film works and that it was kind of a legal, weird area for people to do their own stunts.
don't break your neck.
Other production nightmares include possibly the most difficult and significant one, which involves Dulcinea herself. So when the film started, they had cast the final actress for it, Gabrielle Fitzpatrick, as Dulcinea. She does a fine job given the character. The character's not much to write home about, but it's Power Rangers.
Hot.
Yeah, she is hot.
Sorry.
I hear Dulcinea, I just think of Don Quixote.
Wasn't it Dulcea? I think it was just Dulcea.
I thought it was Dulcinea in Don Quixote.
No, I'm talking about the...
Oh, and Power Rangers,
Character.
sorry.
No, it's Dulcinea.
Right.
So, Dulcinea, they had cast Gabrielle Fitzpatrick, but just as they were about to start, she had to have surgery to get a cyst removed. So they brought in a woman...
Mariska Hargitay of Law & Order SVU fame.
Wow.
I am so confused.
They
by
shot
this.
and filmed her scenes. You can see production stills. Like, look them up. Just, like, look them up yourself. I'll have Richie insert them in the video. He can find some and insert them.
I'll dig him up.
Yeah. Then, when they took a brief production break, they fired her because she went back home to see her family for the holidays.
That's a dick move.
Yeah, on one hand, you are technically supposed to stay on location for extensive stuff like that, so I understand, but it just caused more production delays because they had to reshoot all those scenes again and cut some scenes.
Like, I get the whole contractual obligation things, but she was replacing the first actress, out of necessity. So, for the crime of wanting to see her family in the middle of being a replacement actress, she got canned.
Yeah, so before we get extensively into the bigness of this, there's a couple of last things I'm going to say. One final production thing I want to talk about, a small one and a bigger one. This is where there's one significant bit of this. This is when the character Billy stops wearing glasses. David Yost hated wearing the glasses for the show because they had to put a special reflective coating on it so that cameras didn't show up, which ironically caused him to not be able to see that well.
Huh.
And also hurt his eyes. So when they started shooting on location, he just didn't wear the glasses and walked up to the director and said, "Hey, can I just not wear the glasses?" And because Spicer wasn't familiar with the source material, he was just like, "Yeah, sure, whatever, I don't care."
Fuck it.
And one of the dumbest production things ever was somehow it got leaked that they were filming.
Oh, no.
Okay.
And a local radio station, when they were shooting the final sequence set at Darling Harbour in Australia,
Yeah.
the local radio station announced there was a Meet the Power Rangers event going on.
Oh,
no.
So hordes of family and children showed up at a closed-off shooting location.
No.
Oh, no.
Oh.
And before I get into the plot synopsis, we're going to talk about the soundtrack and composer. I know it's been going on for a while, but this movie is such a nightmare that I wanted to make it clear.
Hey, this isn't as bad as our Moulin Rouge intro.
No,
Oh,
at least we're not going off on a bunch of tangents.
Anyway.
So, this is the first score on the show we're going to be covering by the awesome Graeme Revell, who I have a feeling we are going to be covering a lot on this. So for those unaware, Graeme Revell has worked in everything. He's done Wes Craven scores. He did People Under the Stairs. He got his start in horror and has done a lot of horror. Most of you probably know him best for The Crow, which was also his score work.
Inevitably going to pop up on this show.
He started out in electronic music with the band SPK before breaking into film work, and his film scores actually kind of reflect that. So most of his compositions are electronic, which, interesting choice given the fact that Power Rangers was mainly known for its rock sound. Its rock guitar sound. So this film's got electronic and string reorganizations of the Power Rangers music that you know, and it honestly, one of the best parts of the movie.
Nice high-energy cover of the theme song, too.
Absolutely.
I'll say for the record that I like the original better just because, nostalgia. But the orchestration and the synth work in this movie's version of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers song is epic.
Revell's a legend. He's an 8-time recipient of the BMI Film Music Award. Has worked on countless films, as I've said. It's believed by a lot of people, Revell himself, I believe I heard. Don't quote me exactly on it, but I believe in my research I came across that somewhere, that one of the reasons he was chosen for this film was actually his score work on the Street Fighter movie a few years ago.
Possibly a candidate for the show.
Yeah.
Disclaimer on that, by the way, Erin, that movie is not good.
But it's good.
Yes. It has things to enjoy about it, including some cheesy scenes, the music.
The comedy is honestly on point for that film.
Yeah. Oh, and let us not forget to mention...
Quick, change the channel!
Let's not forget to mention the absolute tour de force performance of Raul Julia.
Oh, yeah. And as I just quoted, the guy who plays Zangief in that film is just hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
He steals the show. And the guy playing DJ. Those two are, like, the other highlights of the film, honestly.
Girl playing Chun-Li wasn't bad either.
Yeah, she wasn't bad. But, like, the villain side, like, pretty much everyone in the villain...
Vega.
Yeah, everyone who plays a villain in that movie kind of steals the show.
Anyway.
And he also helped a lot of bands with string arrangements on their albums since then. Notably, 2 bands that Erin and I have connections to. He did the string work on Evanescence's Fallen album.
Oh my god.
And he did the string work on several Wombats albums.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, cool, Wombats. And then I look back at my Evanescence face and cringe.
This film, let me tell you, it has a hell of a soundtrack. I was just talking about the score. The soundtrack itself is 90s as hell. You got Van Halen, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Devo, They Might Be Giants, Shampoo. Revell himself composed an original track for the film called Firebird, which has early soundtrack guitar work from Buckethead.
Yep.
This was one of the first films Buckethead did music for.
Oh, wow.
Glad about the Red Hot Chili Peppers thing because that soundtrack contribution is, in fact, their kick-ass cover of Higher Ground.
It's a cool that scene with the Higher Ground's honestly really cool.
One of the best cover songs ever, in my opinion, too.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, all right. Before we get into this, I will give you guys a brief synopsis. Like I said, it's set in an alternate continuity. As construction work is going on in Angel Grove, the city that the show is set in, construction workers accidentally uncover and crack an ancient egg that releases an ancient evil sealed long ago known as Ivan Ooze. Now the Power Rangers must come together to help defeat Ivan Ooze and his villains, who have even taken out the Rangers' main villains from commission.
Da-da-da.
With that kind of power, you could say this villain is no yoke.
Nope. All right, let's get into it. Hey, and we're back. So that was Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, released in 1995. Got mixed reviews from critics. Budget was about 15 mil. Made a cool 66.3 mil, so, modest success. But those budgets also never take into account stuff like marketing and the extraneous stuff, so it was still probably just only barely a success due to the way Hollywood math works. So, yeah, First time seeing it since probably like I was a little kid. Not bad. It's a cheesy kids film with some solid action sequences that's mainly brought down by the plot and the finale.
We will get to that. I'm of a similar mind that this was a funny, well choreographed action kids movie with some terrible effects and even worse
It's
climactic
pretty much just
execution.
the CG. It's pretty
Oh
much just
God,
the CG.
it's the practical effects are good.
No, the practical effects are great. Our only complaint is the actual Ranger costumes. Like
Oh yes, we will get to that, but I had a decent amount of fun with this. I'd say it's a 5.5 out of 10 movie, and I was unnecessarily cruel to it when I reviewed it back for the Collegian back at LaSalle. But, you know.
Yeah. So, thoughts from our newcomer?
From the uninitiated.
Just be careful.
Yeah. Yeah, scooch on over.
Oh, okay. I thought you were
Alright.
going to move it towards me.
It's not that adjustable. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Yes, it is.
It is. Okay, so my take is pretty much the same as Richie's. It's a good 5.5 out of 10. Is it the worst movie? No. Is it the best movie? Not either.
Definitely way worse kids movies.
There's definitely much worse kids movies, and I've definitely seen much worse kids movies.
Case in point, from this own franchise, Turbo.
Yeah, the Turbo movie. What is that weird little gnome thing? I hate it.
Don't remind me. We got an uninitiated person talking here.
Who has no idea.
Erin, please.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You good?
I like how they gave poor Adam a minivan as his vehicle. Like, everyone gets these cool new turbo vehicles.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie.
I would just say, you don't realize how useful a minivan is until you're a teenager with a bunch of friends.
Yeah, but when you got, like, these super-powered, like, supercars, it's kind of disappointing.
We
you're the
don't
one who
talk
gets the
about
minivan.
Turbo!
I would say I had some great times in the back of a party wagon when I was in high school. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so as the uninitiated until about an hour and a half ago, I would say this movie is alright. The practical effects are pretty good. They're actually quite impressive. The special effects that they do with the CG is god awful.
Yeah, it's really bad.
It's really bad. I've seen worse out of movies that came out of earlier and later.
It's like reboot levels.
It's reboot levels, yeah. As for the writing and direction, I can tell that there was some kind of like hiccups here and there between what was supposed to happen, what happened.
Yeah.
It's a little obvious, unfortunately.
Yeah, after the beginning, it becomes more obvious, you know?
Yeah, there are certain parts where it seems like they're like, hey, we have a budget, let's use it. Which, like, the opening scene is them skydiving, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
At least it's established why they're doing it.
Yeah.
Because it's for a charity event, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have my gripes, too. Really could have used a more Vulcan skull.
Oh, yeah. They are one of several highlights of the movie, another of which we are getting to.
Oh, of
but,
course, yeah.
Vulcan Skull are in top form in this.
You can tell they're just happy to be in a movie.
Oh, yeah. They are cut from the same cloth as a bunch of wise guy duo bully characters.
They're like our generation's Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly. And they would have been insufferable had it not been for the energy and chemistry of their actors.
Of Paul Schrader and Jason Narvey, because they clearly have so much fun. I mean, they had so little to do because so much of their stuff got cut that Jason Narvey bought a car while he was there and drove it around, and
Oh, you
everyone
told
was
the
like,
story.
oh, cool car. How are you going to get it back home? And he was like, oh, Right.
I have to import this to California.
So he had to pay import fees. He had to spend so much money that he rode back with his car on the boat that it was transporting.
You know what the funny thing is, too? It's so hilarious seeing interview footage of Paul Schreier, because he is one of the most soft-spoken and gentle people ever. And I think it's especially
him
cute.
and Jason Arvey are just like such like soft-spoken, nice people.
Oh yeah, like go back and watch some of the memorial interviews they gave about Tui Trang, the original Yellow Ranger, Trini.
Oh, and if you want to see Paul Schreier and some Ranger stuff again, doing a great job, watch the watch the officially sponsored Hasbro Power Rangers Hyperforce tabletop streams.
Oh yeah,
they're a lot of fun, and Paul Scheer actually plays a new Power Ranger that was created for they created a whole new Power Rangers team for this tabletop campaign called the Hyperforce. They're really cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're all based off mythological animals and stuff.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're great in this movie. I think the best Bulk and Skull scene is unmistakably their section of the skydiving bit.
Yeah.
Where
they just go in so late.
So late and
land so far off course
and just nervous. I'm gonna be the eagle.
Yeah, and immediately bullshit their way out of potential legal trouble by landing in a construction
site.
Hey, we found something. Yeah, you go check that out. You know, and they're just like,
we're gonna fuck out of here.
Yeah, and they were just like, that was close.
Yeah. That's just one highlight of the movie, though. One thing that elevates it from a 5 to a 5.5, at least for me, is unmistakably the show-stealing performance of Paul Freeman as Ivan Ooze.
So, when I first started seeing Paul Freeman in this role, I was like, this guy is somewhere between, British supervillain and some guy's Jewish grandpa.
Yeah, really, yeah.
I was expecting him to start yelling at someone in Yiddish at some point in this movie.
He's having so much fun, though.
Yeah.
The most famous line of, the movie, all the horrors I've missed, the Black Plague, the Spanish Inquisition, the Brady Bunch reunion. And he just delivers it with such gravitas.
With such zeal.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And Freeman improvised the Brady Bunch reunion part of it. And, they literally had to stop for a bit because they were just dying of laughter. And they were like, that's goated. That's goated. He
strikes me as kind of a precursor to the more comedic Disney film villains. Hades or Tamatoa. Same kind of mixture of legitimately threatening and gut-bustingly hilarious.
He's good.
Yeah.
I mean, to bring it back to another episode we watched, another episode we did in the last season, The Great Mouse Detective with Vincent Price being a horrifying comedic genius in The Great Mouse Detective as Ratigan.
Yeah, he's good in that.
But yeah.
Freeman brings the same kind of energy.
Same kind of energy.
Yeah.
And legitimately threatening. And something that this kind of plays into is the fact that this movie, for all its faults, does have stakes.
Yeah.
Like,
they set him off pretty dang early.
You know, because Zordon is
dying. They've lost the Ranger powers. They got to leave Earth to find new powers.
And they get it from a very temporarily appearing but incredibly sexy source.
Yeah. Gabrielle Fitzpatrick can get it.
Yeah.
Yep, as Dulcea.
Yeah.
We got it. Yes, Richie, we know we got it wrong.
Vindication.
Don't remind us.
This is vindication.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, very, very good outfit, I would say. Very, very interesting, you know.
Green bikini, okay?
Yeah.
Costume design. She is toned.
Yeah, she is.
She could kick my ass and I would love it.
You
See, Erin,
and me both.
You just gotta embrace that. You just gotta embrace that side.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all on the same wavelength
we're all
about
on the same
that.
boat.
Yeah.
Just, woof.
I just cannot see Mariska in this part. That is
No.
such a weird.
No.
I see her pulling out handcuffs and saying you're under arrest for the rape of somebody.
Yeah, like seriously, like
She's kind of stuck in that role, to be honest.
yeah, Gabrielle Fitzpatrick is just perfect for that like pseudo Xena Red Sonja kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's got the toughness, but also kind of the grace.
Mhm.
Like there's a certain level of dignified that you need to be like, warrior woman.
Yeah, and
material.
I like her combination staff whistling collie sticks weapon. I thought that was a cool weapon.
Yeah. Cool sound design too.
Yeah.
And you got to see her swing them around.
Yeah.
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 It's good. It's good. You know,
I'm sorry, what were we talking about?
There's one thing I just thought about that was kind of confusing for me, at least.
What's
Oh, yeah?
that?
So they establish early on that Ooze has henchmen like Zed and Rita do, like a putty sort of thing. Like
Yeah.
the Ooze men.
Uzis.
And then they just get replaced by, like, Tengu? Which don't fit his theming whatsoever.
No, they don't. They're basically giant bird people.
Yeah, and
They're
Tengu
crow
are
people, which
Tengu are Japanese mythology too.
yeah, they're Japanese like mythological demons.
Yeah,
or
they're like
something.
yokai basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like yokai.
I don't know. Budget.
But they already
That's
made
writing.
but they already made the Uzis. Why didn't they just keep using the Uzis?
I guess they couldn't think of a creative way to have them fly to a different planet.
I guess, but they could have made goo wings for them or something.
Yeah,
That would
get
look stupid.
Maybe.
no. Give them like gooey bat wings. Demon that shit
yeah,
up.
like a viscous
Yeah.
sort of looking.
Yeah.
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 Because he has kind of a Cronenberg, but for kids.
or have them
design.
with like mercury on glass.
Yeah, and like just like float
like,
around, ooze around in the air.
Yeah, like
Speaking
mercury
of
on glass.
Ooze around in the air.
Yeah.
Ooze. They're
around.
ooze. Come on.
Speaking of ooze, one thing that is the most emblematic of this movie's weird fluctuating quality is the effects.
Yeah.
And some of the changes they made to the costumes.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, Lord Zed looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
They changed up Rita's a bit. The horns are a little smaller on the new outfit.
But Zed's brain actually
Yeah.
pulses. The muscles look a bit less plastic.
They changed
It
up
does look more.
Goldar too. They changed up Goldar. Like his he's like supposed to be a big monkey man. His face has like a more like feline look in this.
Yeah, like a sphinx.
Yeah.
Kitty.
But the minions were good.
I hate Mordant.
Yeah, he's the weirdest thing because he's not from the TV show. He only appears in this film, and it just does not have Squat, Babu, or Finster,
Or Rito.
or Scorpina, all of who were very established Rita minions, and they just bring in some new guy and cut like the majority of her like goon squad.
And they gave him Curly Howard's voice, but without any of the comedic timing or the humor.
Yeah, and the weird part too about all that too is like it breaks so much of the chemistry up because like Goldar is fairly competent,
Yeah.
so not having the three of them and so is Rito, so not having the four of the more competent villains surrounded by idiot minions sort of detracts a little from the dynamic, you know?
And it also kind of takes away from Goldar because... Yeah, they turn him into double act with Mordant, and it's not funny.
No. Because, like, he has this established rapport with Squat and Babu, and without Squat and Babu around, like, the chemistry's not there.
Although, in those few moments that do have Zed and Rita are hilarious.
Yeah, and honestly, Goldar works well off Ivan Ooze when they're just the two of them together. Like towards the end, like they were funny together, like that. Like, oh, you think she's cute too? And he's like, eh? Just like kind of like, oh, did I say that? And just like looks at him like, don't speak of this again, you know? Or when he throws his arm around him and he's like, touch me again and I will turn you into chicken wings, you know?
Shout out, by the way, to Barbara Goodson, who, as always, is
Stealing the show.
as Rita. She's barely in it for any more than like 5 minutes, but she's still funny.
And I've always kind of hated the trend in like film adaptations of like TV shows where they're like, we need to up the stakes. What do we do? screw the old villains. We're gonna bring some new villain in.
At least they do it in kind of a funny way.
Yeah,
though.
like Ivan Ooze is a great villain. Don't get me wrong, but like it sucks how little Zed and Rita we get because they're so iconic.
Well, yeah. My thing is, if you're gonna do that, do it in a funny way that kind of pokes fun of itself.
Yeah, or
like,
have them like they should have just worked together.
Yeah, honestly,
they should have just done a big villain team up.
Yeah, it's underutilized.
Yeah.
Villain team ups are underutilized in general when it comes to doing like TV versions, like doing film adaptations of TV shows. Because if you do like, oh, these villains team up together and then they're unstoppable, it's a lot cooler than just like, hey, we've never seen this guy before, so he's gonna try to destroy the planet.
Yeah, because it's also an insult to the fans of those villains, you know?
It is.
Yeah.
Like the best example is when the ending of season 2 of the reboot of Doctor Who, where you have the Cybermen and the Daleks.
Oh,
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, like that's
and it rips your heart out.
And I just don't like when they do that. You know, it's like in the Z. It's like whenever they have any of the Dragon Ball Z movies where the old villains show up and then some new villain just shows up and kicks their ass, and you're just like, oh, geez.
Boring.
Yeah, boring.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like when Garlic Jr. shows up and like beats Piccolo, like for example.
I feel like this is one of the only ones where we don't need a spoiler timestamp too. That's funny.
Yeah, I mean it's a Power Rangers movie.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to gush about a little bit is just how much ad-lib appreciation there is in this movie.
Yeah, there's some really good ad-libs. Like,
Oh yeah.
Like Johnny Youngbosh's "I'm a Frog" was literally his reaction.
Yeah, that bit where
when he got to the part in the script, he said, "This is dumb," and they were trying to explain. Well, they go, "Well, frogs are agile," and he goes, "No, they're not. I catch them all the time."
It's like I caught them all the time when I was a kid in my backyard.
Yeah.
See, I did the same thing except at a campground. We
Yeah.
had, no joke, we had a little pen, like a little sand pit, full of like 10 frogs.
Yeah.
The-
when
the-
you get to it's weird when you get to Dulcea's planet, Phaedos or whatever it was called.
Phaedos.
It's so clear how they had to do reshoots and cut things because like Dulcea's just like, yeah, I just can't go on the journey with you. If I leave, I'll age.
Bye.
Yeah.
And this is preceded by her flying off as a barn owl.
Yeah, and she leaves that area they briefly show as the barn owl and watches them when they get to the temple. So it's like, you just lied to them.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Kinda, but like it just feels lazy writing more so.
I can't be seen in public. I kissed a teenager on the forehead.
Yeah, it feels less like a Yoda thing and more like we need to think of a reason to write her out because we're already behind on schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, again, without her, we would have not have gotten the legendary frog line.
Yeah.
And I had mentioned before how Death Battle used the frog thing to mask the fact that he came back for Death Battle as Ichigo.
Yeah, and you know it was fun. It's a pretty fun movie.
It's a fun romp.
The highlights are the chemistry between the cast and honestly the unmorphed fight sequences.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna gush about the first fight scene with the Oozlings a little bit, cause
Great jelly.
Yeah. The Jellyman.
The Jellyman. So in the fight with the Jellyman, they take their time a bit gauging these guys by fighting without morphing. And
as is a staple of the series.
I've heard people complain that this is the worst fight in the movie. I disagree.
Yeah.
There's like they whip out a bunch of awesome gymnast moves, especially from the likes of David Yost and his stunt double.
And Amy Jo Johnson.
And especially Amy Jo Johnson, because she was always the most agile.
Mm-hmm.
And the characters get in a whole bunch of quick
fun little quips, yeah.
Quick little one-liners, and Johnny Ong Bosch is turning everything into a slapstick routine. And props to Billy in that scene for that one mook that he pins to the ground.
Yeah, it looks like something out of Mortal Kombat.
Oh, yeah.
He fucking drills his fist into his chest.
Yeah, it's some Kano shit, man.
Like, he's like, use, you lose.
Yes.
And of course, since this is partially something we're dedicating to him, we got to talk about how on point Jason David Frank was whenever he got to do martial arts stuff.
Of course, yeah. And he carries the air of a natural leader in this film.
Oh, yeah.
He does.
Like, people joke about the overexposure of Tommy, but it's because Jason David Frank just has that charisma.
He does.
And say what you want about Fred, the kid character, but his scenes where he interacts with Tommy are really nice because it indicates what makes Tommy so iconic.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like the kid stuff is both over and underutilized.
Yeah.
I getcha.
Yeah. I just like, kids are always annoying in Power Rangers.
Oh yeah, because they're there to be the hype men, basically.
Yeah, and it's like, the whole reason they're teenagers is because they literally said it's the perfect kind of like age range to pitch a show for a kid to, because they're not adults, so you don't feel disconnected from them, but they're not kids, so you don't feel like the show is looking down on you by making someone the same age as you. They're the next stage of your life. That's close enough for you to imagine.
And also, so you can have someone to look up to that you want to be when you get older.
Yeah, and it's not like such a distant vision. And kids see teenagers as cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also something heartwarming to be said about these teenagers who are kind of golden beacons of goody goodness because they have their stuff together, they have their interests, they care about their friends and their loved ones, and it's like the show is saying, hey, teenage years don't have to be hell. You can be that good guy.
Yeah. And, like, I don't think we've praised it enough for this episode, but the music's great. Graeme Revell does a great job. Yeah.
Graeme Revell's score in this one takes a couple of notes from, like, adventure movies like Indiana Jones or Star Wars. A little bit of Romancing the
Some
Stone
Superman
here and there.
in there,
Superman.
Yeah. Like, you can see a John Williams type of influence on the score
more
score.
electronic John Williams.
Like, electronic John Williams is the best way of putting it. But you do hear some, like, string tracks in there. Almost sounds orchestral in some parts.
Almost.
Yeah.
Almost.
If I have one big complaint, they needed to use that, like, remixed version of the Power Rangers theme more. It only shows up. It only shows up twice in the film.
Yeah.
And, like, it only plays for, like, a few seconds each time.
It says something that remix is so good, however, that they used it for the 2016 movie, though.
Yeah, it's really good.
Like, it does have a theatrical revamp feel to it. Like, the original is a classic, but it's very much a TV show. The remix done for this movie screams, this is Power Rangers on the big screen, and the stakes are higher, and they're gonna kick some butt.
Yeah, and, like, another big problem with the second half of the movie is, like, they cut back on those licensed tracks because they're utilized really well in the early parts of the film.
You got the skydiving scene with that aforementioned amazing cover of Higher Ground.
Yeah, that's a really good cover.
Chills down my spine every time I hear that Flea bass line, by the way.
It's really good. The fight sequence with the Devo.
Are you ready?
Yeah, that's a great battle track there.
90s Devo is pretty awesome because that was when they were doing semi hip-hop stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of that cover they did for Head Like a Hole, but hey, Devo in the 90s was kicking some ass.
The roller skating to Free Ride was fun, you know. It felt it had
breezy.
Yeah, it had a nice breezy, like, calm before the storm, like,
yeah, which is what they were going for.
Yeah, exactly.
And
the excellent original Firebird track, like the guitar work for that Buckethead did on that track is so great.
that's because Buckethead is a guitar.
Buckethead.
Yeah, he's a guitar virtuoso.
Mm-hmm.
Nice use of that Van Hagar song at the
Ending with
ending
Dreams,
scene.
Yeah.
I hate Sammy Hagar's Van Halen, but I will say that use of Dreams
That's fair.
is it's just an objectively good use of the song during the fireworks.
Insanely so.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
I love the usage of Shampoo's We're in Trouble.
And that
I think
one...
it's just called Trouble, but yeah.
yeah, Trouble, yeah.
And when they used a little bit of... What was it? They Might Be Giants in...
When the dad's driving.
When
Yeah.
they're driving,
Yeah.
When the dad's driving.
Yeah.
I can't find anything on Shampoo, by the way. It's so weird.
Yeah, they're obscure.
Like, from what I can tell, they're this little pop rock band from Australia.
Yeah.
And everyone remembers them for this song and essentially nothing else.
Yeah. I do think that... I admit, I got a chuckle. I got a straight up chuckle in like when they bring it back for the mid credits. Like that was like good needle drop there.
With they go uh-oh.
Yeah, and then
uh-oh,
we're
we're
in trouble.
trouble.
That was clever. I liked
Yeah.
that.
That song is joyfully annoying.
Yeah, it is.
Like it captures a very preteen.
It's so 90s too.
It's so 90s with those funk guitar riffs and the
Mhm.
pseudo hip hop beat.
the like semi-detached, ironic like vocal work. You know?
Yeah.
And I like the dinosaur skeleton sequence is. I think it's honestly good symbolic stuff. You know.
Yeah, honestly. He had brought this up before in the middle of the scene, and I had this look on my face like, oh, like it was clicking to me because you got the new ninja suits.
And they have to fight the corpses of dinosaurs, and the dinosaurs are the old powers, you know?
Like, yeah, it's obviously kind of surface stuff, but
Yeah.
it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the temple fight is really good, too.
Oh, yeah, with the Rockmen.
And the excellent environmental fighting and stuff.
In general, they take advantage of the environment, too. Like,
And that's smart, too, because it shows they're adapting. Like, they're becoming more like ninja because they're, like, striking from the shadows and stuff like that.
Yeah. I
doing
can
a
see
lot
that.
of wall jumping and...
A lot of misdirection, you know, the scene where Billy, like, uses the rope to, like, pull himself up and causes the other Rockman to, like, slice his friend in half, you know? It's very ninja-like.
Yeah.
What-
And plus, I can also see what you were saying, Richie, about the dinosaur. How they're almost like they're defeating their old selves to become a new person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that was Daulton, but, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And it was smart too, because like it shows that they're becoming
Evolving.
and they're becoming more observational because they don't beat it through brute force; they beat it through finding a weak point on it. And then
Yeah, they take the
striking it, you know,
collarbone segment out
and
of
then
there and
it
cause it to fall
collapses.
apart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I wish I saw we had like just like another unmorphed fight sequence.
Yeah, because it shows that, like, they last longer in this fight unmorphed than any of the other unmorphed fights.
Mhm.
Because, remember, this is later in their careers. The new team members are here that are a bit more combat savvy.
Yeah,
No disrespect to Zach, because I love him,
Yeah.
but, you know. And...
yeah. I just wish they had added just like maybe like 5-10 minutes more onto the film for one fight scene when they get back to Earth, aside from the Zord thing.
Yeah.
Like a pre-Zord fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you also don't want to overload the film.
I get that, but like it feels weird that they get these new powers and then they never actually fight in the new suits.
Granted, at
sense.
that point, the transmorph...
Yeah, I feel like you still could have written in like another.
The ectomorphicons, I think they're
Yeah.
called. They're already summoned, so they don't have time
yeah,
for...
I still feel like you could have written something in.
Maybe.
Like maybe like the Rangers try to like take Zed on direct, not Zed, try to take Ooze
Ooze.
on directly, and he's like fighting him off with magic and stuff. You know, like before he's forced to like turn into that massive form. I feel like that would have been a better
Maybe.
usage instead of him just like immediately taking over one.
You
of
know
the
what I
Rangers.
think? I think that my arguments for the plot progression and my points on this are kind of being undermined by the fact that the ensuing Zord fights are so fucking terrible.
That's
Yeah.
Like, that's my other point. Is like, I get that they had to have a Zord fight. It's the staple of the series. You always end with a Zord fight, but it looks so bad.
Oh, the
Yeah.
effects.
Especially the when Ooze becomes like a big monster, like it makes you appreciate how much better those like insectoid monsters look
better. Because their designs are cool. They're techno-organic, ooze-powered bugs.
They look better than the Zords do.
Oh, I love the idea of those Zord designs.
Yeah.
But they were slaughtered by those plasticine proto PS1 CGI.
Especially considering that their show counterpart, the Thunder Megazord, just looks so much cooler.
Oh, I love the Thunder Megazord. It has like a mythological look
because they just took the Die Ranger stuff for that, which is also where the White Ranger suit comes from, is Die Ranger.
Yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm. I got nothing. I don't know why you're pointing right towards me.
We were both going back and forth for a bit, so I just kind of...
I'm just like, I got nothing.
But yeah, no, this movie is really elevated by the performances, the practical effects, and the music. The music is like the real big highlight of this.
I might as well say, too, while we're on the subject of the 30th anniversary, and if David Yost or Johnny Young Bosch or one of those cast members somehow stumbles into this link via
somewhere, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe if I pick up a 4-leaf clover or something. You guys seriously elevated the show.
Yeah.
And
I just wanted to say specifically, David Yost, I know you had like a difficult time on the show, but Billy was a very foundational character to me as a kid. It made me realize that like I didn't have to be ashamed to be dorky or nerdy, and that I could still be cool and have friends even if I was kind of a dork, like it meant a lot.
Oh, and you were easily the best actor of the bunch with how well you were able to naturally put out snide one-liners and technobabble.
Mm-hmm.
You and JYB. You guys rock.
Everyone was great in this. You all had a great time. I could tell, like, what you had, and it's a popcorn movie. It's a candy flick, and you know what? Sometimes you just need a good candy flick, and
yeah.
I think it easily.
Sometimes on the show you go in for cerebral stuff like Ghost Dog
mm-hmm.
or Quadrophenia.
And other times you go in for a movie that you just want to sit down and eat some popcorn and enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
Or in our case, gummy bears.
Yeah.
Or gummy bears.
And
we should get popcorn next time, though.
Yeah,
we
should start doing popcorn with this.
Yeah.
But if you go in with like a soda, some popcorn, so just some snacks and some buddies, you'll have a good time.
Or, if you got like a younger sibling or a family member that you just want to vibe with and watch some sci-fi kung fu fights.
Something you don't got to think too much about.
Something you can giggle at.
Speaking of sci-fi kung fu, there's something that all three of us watched recently that I can highly, highly recommend.
We're going to be those people. Go see Everything Everywhere.
Everything Everywhere all at once. You will not regret it.
No.
We can't say anything either, and we're not being pretentious about it. The surprise is half the fun.
It's great.
You will cry.
And laugh.
Oh, yeah. So, unless you guys got anything else to say, that about wraps it up for me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for reminding me why I liked this movie. I was going in thinking, oh, cringe, but then
we had a good time.
It was a good time.
It was a romp.
Yeah, it was.
It was a fun romp.
Yes. She's got nothing again.
I got nothing again. I was trying not to burp in a microphone.
Oh, it showed up too.
Oh, yeah. I'm so sorry.
No, it was very quiet. Your throat made a funny noise.
That was me trying not to burp into a microphone. I just drank some vanilla Coke. I mean, come on.
Don't do it. Keep this in.
No. But before we lead out, so final thoughts. I had a pretty fun time.
I had a fun time.
Yeah.
Me too. So, I love whenever I have the movie pick ball, and I also hate it because I had so many ideas for a February episode. The last year or two, I believe, February was reserved for a Black History Month pick, but a lot of the movies I wanted to cover for that were either too recent or too big to be considered cult. That said, next week, or possibly the week after, thank you, Super Bowl,
Yeah.
we
Probably
are...
the week after.
Yeah, because Valentine's Day too.
Oh, yeah.
Next Tuesday.
Yeah. But either way,
Super Bowl.
we're not doing it during the Super Bowl, because I know you're gonna be dragged into it. So
You say that as if I wouldn't enjoy the prospect.
I know. You're an Eagles fan, but yeah.
Yeah. Suck it, Reed. Anyway, so next time on Killer Score, we are going to cover something that is a fascinating case study in a movie of its time. A film that was lauded by everyone and their mother when it came out, until a year or two passed and everyone realized that it was flawed as hell. That said, there are a lot of things making this movie relevant, not the least of which is its composer, once again. Thank you, Daulton, for that transition with Power Rangers. And also the fact that it was one of the first successful instances of having an African-American lead in a superhero film. Some say that viewing this movie is hell, but, well, we'll be the judges of that as we take a dive into the Todd McFarlane adaptation, Spawn.
Next time.